Hey guys, good morning. It's Armand from Cool Trading Tools here. So let's get started here. We're going to go over a few things this morning. We got some economic data with the PPI coming out, and we had the CPI yesterday, which had some interesting reaction to it. So we're going to go over the market, NASDAQ, QQQ, semiconductor, ETF. We'll go over a couple day trade ideas for the day, as well as a swing trade idea that we were watching for the last week and a half. So we'll just go over all these different things and let's get started here. So let's go starting with we have PPI this morning here. We had the CPI yesterday. It looks like a lot of Federal Reserve speakers coming, but ideally we're just going to focus on the PPI that comes out in about 45 minutes here. So we'll see how that affects the open with everything. Really, the NASDAQ is kind of getting as tight as you could possibly get, right? So we've been watching this tightening range, high, low, high, low, high, low, high, low. And we're kind of in this very tight range here. We're really watching this for a break to see on the weekly chart, do we get a weekly bull flag and continue? Or a weekly bear or a failed bull flag on the weekly and get a little bit longer consolidation, maybe what we would call is like monthly consolidation, which wouldn't be that crazy. Keeping it simple, we have this resistance level right here. We want to watch kind of this 225 725 to 727 area. Might even be a little bit clear on the 4-hour chart. Let's take a look here. Yeah, so we'll watch that. And then obviously we're watching a break of either this high, this double top here from this day and that day, or a break of this. And really, that should be our signal here, right? If we break this level here, we look then for immediately to see, do we get down here? But I would get bearish if we can break the pivot from 2 days ago, right? And then we can remain a little bit bullish if we get above that. Ideally, like I said, things are still following the market right now. I think people are still kind of like, okay, what's going to happen here? Because everybody's cognizant of this big run that we had. So keep it simple. Bullish if we can get above this level. Bearish if we can get it below this level. Don't have to overcomplicate it there. And I think we watch this tightening range. It doesn't get much tighter than this, which gives us a great opportunity to define a risk off of, and it's close by here. So move to the semiconductor ETF. This has a nice level to actually be watching. You know, it has this kind of area. Previous support, now resistance. You know, one touch support. Now it's touched this resistance 1 time, 2 times, 3 days, even in the pre-market here. So we can watch this area, same thing. If we can stay above this, we can be a little bit more bullish on the semiconductor sector and maybe look for a little bounce in some of these names like MU. AMD's been relatively strong, but I'll be honest, my heart is telling me we might be in for a little bit of a longer consolidation. Doesn't necessarily mean a deep correction, but I expect that we remain range bound for maybe going into the rest of the summer here. But we'll just follow the charts and see what that says, but we can watch that level. I'm still watching SOXL to play via the semiconductor, what it does. I mean, I've never traded a 2x or a 3x ETF as long as I have a SOXL. Like I said, I don't trade during these periods because the volatility is not hot, but like when the market's getting a little frothy, we will. The ETF has just kept up the volatility, and it makes watch list building easier. This is the ATR right here for the last month, which is awesome. It's giving a lot of great opportunity. And if you look at the range, ATR 10-day 33.85, ATR 31.62. I mean, on a $180 stock, that's almost like a little under 20% ATR. And you can ask if you have any questions about what I mean by that, but long story short, it's giving great range still, and until it doesn't, we'll probably keep trading that. So we have a really defined level, like we said. Also, when you're watching this, another thing to keep in mind, SOXL is going to follow the semiconductor ETF. So use this for your levels and trade it via the 3x. Don't use this as levels because it's going to respect the levels based on what SMH does. So we want to look for this to break. If you can see, SOXL is a little bit more away from its like kind of pivots here. So just that's another thing to keep in mind when you're marking out levels. Use the semiconductor ETF because SOXL is just going to do what SMH does. It doesn't really matter what SOXL's particular levels do. So just something to keep in mind too as well. So look at a couple of trades here for the day trade opportunities that we were looking at. VEE has been one of the hottest stocks in the market the last 2 days. Had the 600% squeeze, or well, let's see, about yes, almost 700% squeeze this day. Yesterday opened pretty red, right? 24, and then ended up having from the low 160% move right there. So good move yesterday, went red to green and kind of just pushed higher, held the lows, bounced. I mean, held previous day's high, bounced. I'm watching it again. Okay, instinctually, my mind tells me that this is probably going to fail. I don't think it's going to keep squeezing. It's totally a possibility. And in those situations, what I do, 48.79 is the high of yesterday. Let's see, 48.79. I would get more bullish if it can kind of get above those levels here, right? I forget what it was, 48.79. So 48. Sure, we could just do 48 and track it for the next week. If it gets above that, maybe there's enough people to short that it continues to squeeze. However, what I'm going to be watching is yesterday's close line, right? You can even take a long here. This is going to be extremely volatile. So this isn't the faint of heart and people who are maybe a little bit more unconfident about their execution. But if this goes green, you could immediately take a shot at this and sell some into strength and see if it can remain green. I would be very quick to get out if it doesn't. Don't like sit there and wait. And does it immediately push from green and go above yesterday's high? What I think is the more likely scenario and what I'll be watching for, and I'm hoping for, is it tries to go green here at 39. We get a failure candle and a break low, and then that signals the short for, this thing's probably done then. So I'll be watching for a failed red to green, where it goes green, gets back under 39.40 area, and look to short off that, and then under the kind of pretense the stop would remain, some level that we can define based on the rejection, and then that it stays red on the day would remain, that we remain bearish on that, and this could fade, over the coming days a lot longer. But that's kind of the short opportunity for the day. NBIS yesterday, interesting. It had some news, I believe. It had some news. Remained a strong buy with. They had some news, right? That apparently was a positive news article. We could go look at it. I actually looked at it a little earlier this morning. Some deal, right? But what does that tell us, right? It had some positive news, but look at this candle. Huge red. So it's a sell the news event, right? That's a huge, just from a psychological perspective. A lot of people have probably done very well off this stock over the last year and a half, right? Now, exit. These strong news events are providing liquidity for people to exit. So if you're like still bullish on the stock and you're like, oh, we got some news out, it's pulled back, over the last couple months, 30%. We're going to get some positive news out on this deal, and it gaps up yesterday, 5, 6, 7%, and just fades all day long. Under today's lows, I think is a really great short opportunity. I mean, really, we could take it right off of the green to red. Hopefully over the next hour and a half, it just remains green, and we can take that in the active market versus the pre-market. But so we got two things going for it. Technically, it just looks like a great short. You have that clear level here, double bottom here that you can play off of, this kind of 193, 192.50 area. But we can take it right as it goes red and look to break below here for some consolidation. I think based off yesterday's price action, we could maybe get an inside day, but this tells me that this stock is going lower, that it sold the news off yesterday, is very likely scenario that this is going to go lower over the coming days and weeks. The key is, can we time it for a day trade? So we'll see how things shape up. Like I said, the main setups I'd be looking for, like yesterday did an opening range break, right? So we would look for a green to red, or if it opens green, you could also look to take like an opening range breakdown. So here's like opening range 1, 2, 3, break lower, right? That would be like a setup you could take on as well, an opening range break. And I usually put my stop at the VWAP or the high of the candle that breaks. So like this candle, I would short when we broke 216.50, stop at like either the VWAP, which was 218.13, or 219.88, the high of this candle, and let it rip down. So I think those are the two setups we'll be looking for. That is a green to red or the opening range breakdown. So we'll be watching NBIS today, and VEE and SOXL will be trading back and forth depending on how it reacts to these levels that it gets to that we marked down SMH. Does it come test this level, break above, and grind higher? Possibly. SPCX still fading. We talked yesterday in the video, actually. Bounce short into the hourly higher, lower high, set up perfectly. Lower high compared to that. I don't trade this late in the day, so I didn't catch this. But I mean, it was there, right? This is probably the best entry area I see before the VWAP fade break below. So I think that's worked out perfectly. You could probably still keep shorting this. Like I said, it's getting down and long in the tooth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 6 out of the last 7 days red. It's getting long in tooth, but like I said, this thing can keep going down. We've been talking about it for weeks. Still shortable. I think when things get a little extended, you want to short into the bounces versus hitting at lows. So just some food for thought. I do think it's still valid, though. Another setup we've been talking about for the last week and a half as we were looking at this bull. We were looking at it right. Where were we looking at it? Right here, right? We're looking at this day. We were talking about it this morning. A break above this, 730. Stop below that, 699. So about a 30-cent stop. And yesterday it looked like it broke. Not the strongest close, but the structure looks good, right? You can even see here on the hourly levels. I mean, this was a great little spot too on the hourly. On this day, you could have, entered here around these candles, and, that gives you about a 20, 30-cent stop on that, and put your stop below here. And like I said, what are we talking about? The day idea. Weekly uptrend continuation, monthly uptrend switch continuation, daily uptrend continuation, and hood was what we were watching. It already broken out of its base, and we have the driver of it. Like we said, retail traders use Webull and hood versus like Charles Schwab, E-Trade, the more traditional brokers. So with the PDT rule getting abolished, I felt that these stood to benefit from that, as well as the fact that hood had already broken out. We thought bull could be a leader. We'll see. It hasn't gone through yet, but like I said, I think this just shows 30-cent risk here would have already produced a 1-to-1 R without even breaking out, which just shows the power of like a good risk reward, right? If this goes and gets, breaks above here, it could run for $1 or $2, but keep watching. I actually think there's still potentially an entry on it, but just wanted to highlight that as like another teaching area of what we were watching and why, and we'll see what happens with it going forward. Like I said, not the strongest close yesterday, and the market is not the best environment for swing trading, so just something to be cognizant of. But anyways, have a good trading day, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.